I'm Martin Weber, or Weber, but Weber probably is how most pronounced my surname. I'm a pathologist, or strictly an anatomical pathologist. And here on campus, I teach face-to-face of medical students in their first, second, and third year, and I do some teaching into the fifth year program. But we also have the Rural Clinical School. They have a number of campuses, including places like Albury and Wagga Wagga and Port Macquarie and others. And they used to have their own face-to-face teaching sessions with either local pathologists or Sydney-based pathologists that would fly up periodically. But for a number of reasons, unfortunately, for most of our rural campuses now, that no longer happens. So we were tasked this year with coming up with some alternative teaching methods. And what we've done, and it works very well, is to use video conferencing with a teacher or teachers here, and then conferencing out to one or multiple campuses at the same time. I always say, pathology is a very visual discipline. To really understand pathology, you have to see what's going on. And there are two ways of doing that. One is looking at a specimen, for example, with a naked eye, macroscopically. But to really understand what's going on, you need to look at what happens at a microscopic level. So you need to look at a microscopic tissue section, or what we call a histological tissue section. Now, the good old-fashioned way was to use a microscope and a glass slide, and that had lots of problems. And in a virtual environment, doing this via video conferencing, it would not work at all. It would be impossible to teach. Here we have this wonderful opportunity to use virtual slides that we can project, that the students can use at the same time. We can annotate. We all look at the same image. They can point to somewhere on the image and ask, what are they looking at? And I can respond and tell them what they're looking at. Even in a face-to-face setting, looking down the microscope, students seeing something, if we're lucky, and then trying to convey what they're looking at, and then me looking down the microscope and trying to convey what we think they are looking at, is a really difficult task. And as I said, in a virtual environment, it would be absolutely impossible to teach that. So having that at our fingertips just makes this possible, and revolutionizes the whole teaching process in pathology. The annotations are very helpful. So the students can annotate themselves during the tutorial, but we can also have annotated versions that we can share with the students afterwards. The other thing is that students, of course, can access this in their own time. So they're not dependent on having to go to a laboratory, find a microscope, so come in. They can do that in their own time, can revise for the exams in their own time. And of course, they have a library at their fingertips. So there are slides we look at during the actual practical, but they can type in salpingitis, and they come up with other slides, both macroscopic pictures that have been scanned in and other versions of histological sections that they can look at themselves. And they could even annotate and then email me that and ask questions about that if they wish. That flexibility is another really important aspect that I think has changed the way students learn in pathology.